Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. Happy New Year. Happy 25. Hope you're got some good plans shaping up and some good flying adventures happening. On that note, my guest today is Tim Pentreath, who we interviewed almost exactly to the day 4 years ago in 21 as he was getting going with his Gumball rallies across the Alps. These are no charge, just show up and see how far you get rallies in the Alps with various levels of ability, and just people wanting to show up and have fun and have little bivvies in the Alps. And they've been having a great time, and I've been following closely as Tim puts out these fantastic videos of their marches, and it looks like they have a ton of fun. So I wanted to follow up with Tim. The first one was really about just how they handle the logistics and the equipment, and a lot of real specific advice about doing Vol Biv. If you didn't catch that one, go back and grab it. Just put in a search term on the website, Tim Pentreath, and you'll find it. But we put it out January 1st, 21, and here we are, January 1st, 25. I'm heading off for Valle here in a few days, which will be a lot of fun to go rally around and at the Monarcha. On that note, let's get back to the now with Tim Pentreath. Enjoy this episode with a good buddy of mine. He's up in the UK and has a lot of fun. Been flying for over 30 years now, and there's just more information on tackling the Alps. That's one of the main questions I get is, when should I go? What should I bring? How to bivvy? And this answers a lot of that. If you've never done bivvy and been really keen to try it, and you should check out what they're doing. Like I said, there's no charge for this, there's no guiding, and you just show up, and they create a good communication network and good way to track one another and communication channels and pair people off with like abilities and start at A and see how far you get. And something I'd love to go do with these guys one of these days. They're having a ball. Here we go. Tim Pentreath with the Gumball Rally. Enjoy. Happy New Year, everybody. Tim, good to have you on the show again, man.
How are you? Pleasure. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on your show again. Thanks very much.
Yeah, well, last time I saw you in person, I believe, was we were up there at the lakes, and I don't know, 2016, 2017. It's been a while, but I have been keenly following your Gumball rallies. That's what you call them, right? Your Gumball rallies across the Alps.
Gumball Transalp Rally.
Yeah.
Yeah, named after that movie, the Gumball 3000.
Yeah, I mean, and you do a really good job of documenting it, and what I love about it is it's just. It just seems like an outrageous good time. It's just really fun. It seems like that's the goal, right? It's just to have a really good time.
That's basically it. Yeah. And it's have fun, be safe, and to introduce, experienced flyers who are experienced in the mountains as well, but who've never quite plucked up courage to do Vol Biv on their own, to be able to do it in a supportive environment, not necessarily sticking together as a group the whole time, but I mean, we've had big numbers on some of the recent ones, so it's never going to stick together as a group. But you can find your level within it and stick with a smaller group.
And how do you go about organizing it? And what are the rules, the ramifications? I mean, can anybody join? Does it cost money? All those kind of things. How do you handle the logistics of it all?
Everyone is aware that it's everyone's on their own when they're there. Really, you have to be able to fend for yourself. So. If a random person comes up to me and says, "Can I join?" I always make sure I have check out their flights on X Contest or whatever in alpine sort of environment. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing flying 100k out and return in Beer, for example, where you're just blatting up and down a ridge effectively with no valley winds, but in the Alps, it can be a different story.
Yeah.
And as for cost, there's no cost. I don't charge anything.
Right.
Once you start charging, you get into all sorts of legal ramifications in France, especially.
Sure.
Because you're effectively an instructor or a guide, and it's a lose the house scenario.
And you've done it. You've you've done it every summer, right? For the last, I mean, what edition was this last one?
Well, this would have been the fourth sort of official Gumball, shall we say? That, if you like, there was a prequel, a pre-Gumball in 2018. No, wait, 2019 was the first one I did with a bunch of mates. The year before that, I just did a little short Vol Biv with my buddy Nigel
Yeah.
Cooper, who actually joined us on this year's Gumball, which was great. But yeah, so 2019, just four of us did basically that trip, and then 2020 we actually called it the Gumball Transalp Rally. So yeah, fourth edition. So next year, fifth year, it'll be a big one.
Yeah. What's the maximum number of pilots you've had on it?
23.
Holy
Sorry,
smokes.
2023. No, 2023. There were probably more than 23. There was probably,
Wow.
I think there was about 25 of us. There was a whole bunch of northern lads who came down from the Lake District who really swelled the numbers. This year, I think it was 13.
Okay.
Which is a good size. Yeah.
And then are you the kingpin when it comes to, okay, this is the route and this is where we're going to start and end? I mean, do you kind of do that? Or, I mean, is everybody kind of on the same page?
Yeah. I mean, it's, a few people, well, most people will join. We traditionally started in Saint-André down in the south of France. In 2023, because of the forecast down there, we actually started in Chamrousse near Grenoble. And that was a sort of fairly last minute decision to change. But yeah, we'll discuss it, and beforehand I do some Zoom calls and we go through the routes for people who are not familiar with that area, talk about crux points, maybe even go into the detail of what sort of height you need to cross certain, valleys, etc. So yeah, we do a bit of beforehand.
And is the style of it, try to top land at the end of the day and fully bivvy, or is the style of it, sometimes bivvy, sometimes jump in a hotel? How does all that work?
It's entirely up to personal preference. I mean, the best times are when you get a group of you and you land up high and you have a brilliant night together, and then short hike to a takeoff in the morning or whatever. But some people prefer, a nice steak and glass of wine.
Easy to find in the Alps.
Steve, you know who you are if he listens to this. And Cyprian, yeah, they like their steaks. So I mean, yeah, that's not every night, of course, but so it's a personal preference.
Okay. Have you got quite an international crew there, or is it mostly Brits, or how does that work?
It's mostly Brits, but we've had some Americans over the years. We've had Italians, we've had French, we've had Venezuelan pilots. So yeah, it's pretty multinational. Yeah, majority of Brits for sure, but yeah, we've had a great cross section.
How does your own personal packing work out? I mean, or how does your own style? What are you trying to accomplish? I mean, are you filling your bag with 5 days of stuff or 2 days, or, are you always trying to tent? Or?
Yeah, my preference is always to camp somewhere. Yeah, okay, if the weather's turns really bad, then I'll couch surf somewhere or take a B&B or whatever. But there's only been one time when I ended up actually staying a couple of nights in my brother's wife's family have a chalet in Verbier, and had a couple of pleasant nights there. But yeah, so I will pack normally about 5 days worth of adventure food and breakfast and stuff. So yeah. And that normally works out pretty well for if you're going for about 10 days. You end up eating out quite a lot of the time. Yeah. Coffee and croissants quite a lot of the time. There's always restaurants everywhere.
Yeah, sure. It's so easy in the Alps. Do you guys typically fix a week way in advance, or is it really weather driven? Okay, everybody's ready to go at a moment's notice, and you peel out from Bath and head down when it looks like you got a good window.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be ideal to do that, but for quite a lot of people, it's just unrealistic. Yeah. They need to book their holidays in advance. So yeah, we're looking at dates at the moment. Historically, we've been pretty lucky in July. 2023, the weather was not so good that week. This year, we really, we were pretty lucky actually this year, because the weather in the Alps has generally been pretty mixed, shall we say. And yeah, we got a great week. Yeah, about a week before it turned, and then a couple of guys stayed on, carried on flying a bit longer. In fact, one guy, Rafael, Polish guy, yeah, he spent a month out there, I think, or 6 weeks, just slowly and steadily making his way east towards Slovenia. It's incredible.
Mm.
It's always a bit of a gamble, but we do have a bit of flexibility with destinations or starting points. Destinations. What I mean by that is where we fly to. We changed, like I said, last year from Sant Andre to Chamrus just because it was super windy down in Sant Andre.
Are you typically flying into Nice then and getting up to San Andre?
Yeah, most people are. Yeah,
and then
and it's just such a nice little journey from Nice up to Sant Andre on the train.
It's beautiful.
It's fantastic.
And then are you destination unknown every time? You don't have anything in mind, I would imagine, right? You're just going to go as far as you can.
As far as you can, until the weather changes or you run out of time or whatever. But we follow roughly the same route up towards Chamonix, and then head down the Rhone Valley.
So you kind of backdoor into Verbier typically, and then jump and start flying up the Valais and then keep going. What's the farthest you guys have made it so far of all the years?
I think it was probably 2020. I think I made it to almost to Bassano. So that was about 800 kilometers over 10 days. I was sort of on my own by that stage. Others were, where did Chris made it to? Lake Como, I think.
And this was in July.
I mean, but some guys say again.
This was in July that year.
Yeah, it's always been in July. Yeah, I mean, in fact, I think 2 years ago, Roberto, he's the Venezuelan pilot, and Cyprian, who's Romanian but lives in the UK. They made it all the way to Slovenia. They just stayed on. I think they had a month or 3 weeks. So yeah, so some people have done the full Transalps, really.
Yeah.
I've never done. I've run out of time before then, so I've never managed to do the whole thing.
I guess because most of the time you're tenting or bivvying in July. Have you found it? I'm asking questions because I get a lot of people asking about, hey, I want to do my first bivvy in July, so I'm going to ask you a lot of these kind of generic questions that just people that just don't know. But is it hard to find accommodation? Obviously you can't book anything in advance. You don't know where you're going to be, but is it, because I know it tends to get more busy kind of early July when the kids start getting out of school and a lot of travel, especially post-COVID.
I mean, France, I don't think there's any problem in July because August is traditionally when all the French go on holiday. Yep. I don't think anyone's had any problems. This is obviously for for people who if the weather's bad they want to find a B&B or whatever or a hotel. I don't think there's a problem.
Never been an issue.
I mean, refugios in Italy, they're dotted around the place. I don't know whether you have much luck just landing by them and asking for a bed. I don't know. I suspect in July you're probably okay.
Yeah.
The mountains are never crowded though. There's always space on top of them.
Yeah, that's right, isn't it? I mean, I guess it's quite a bit different in June, but that last June when I did the Alps coverage, so I wasn't racing in it, but the refugios were super easy. It just Tres Cime was fine. The one in the Brenta was fine. It was you just rock up, knock on the door, and seemed okay. But that's June. I know June's less busy even. Yeah, come August, you might have issues in some of the more popular areas. I think unless you're trying to land on the side of Mont Blanc or something, you'd probably be okay. Right. I'm curious from, those initial years, just you and a mate in 2018 and then, up to more than 20, what has changed for you, if anything, philosophically, safety wise? What are some of the, looking back, some of the points that have helped define how you do it? Good question. Nothing intrinsically has really changed. It's always been we're always flying and making plans in a supportive and collaborative sort of manner, sharing ideas, looking at weather forecasts together, that sort of thing, looking out for each other. We have had people injure themselves in previous years, including myself, actually.
we've got a sort of network of people back home who are also sort of looking out for us on live track. So, there is an emphasis on safety. There's an emphasis on everyone, reports in when they land and effectively does a sign to fly in the morning, before they take off. Yeah, I mean, that works because we say we've got 20 people. We'll have sort of 4 or 5 different little safety groups, Telegram groups, have a sort of team leader in each group, as it were, who's responsible for making sure everyone signs in and signs out, as it were.
How do you guys communicate? Are you using radios or just Telegram groups, InReach? What's the kind of stuff you guys have for safety?
On the grounds, it will tend to be Telegram.
Okay.
In the air, it's been a mixture in the past of some people using Zello, some people using radios. This year, and I think last year, I went Zello only. I just didn't want the extra weight and complications of a radio, having to have a charger and all that malarkey. So yeah, cheap headset with a little boom mic and Bluetooth headset, and it works really well in the Alps. This is Zello. It's great being able to answer people who have got questions in the air, or like there was last year there was an occasion where I was like 50 miles ahead and I hadn't taken off yet, or I'd landed, I can't quite remember, and I could see what this guy Craig was doing, and I said, and I knew he was on Zello and we're well outside radio range, but I was able to tell him, take that route, don't do what I did, because it didn't work for me. And he managed to glide all the way to Fish.
Ah, cool.
Whereas I landed, just south of Visp. So that really worked well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'll be encouraging everyone to get a Bluetooth headset and a push to talk and use Zello.
Yeah, that was what we used in the last couple of my X-Alps campaigns, which with a lot of success. I mean, none of the X-Alps people fly with radios, but you got to have something pretty good, and we found that worked really, really pretty well. I mean, there were times where there'd be a long delay or whatever because you weren't in cell service, but it would get it, and it was quite easy to use.
Yeah, it tends to technically it works well in the Alps, because I guess they've got cell towers, in the valleys, but also on the mountaintops in places. So you get you're never going to be flying thousands of meters above the mountaintops. So you tend to be in coverage. Whereas I've found in the UK, if you Zello just doesn't work when you're doing the cross country flight, because you're just above the cell coverage.
Tim, I have a lot of listeners call in who aren't in the Alps, don't live there, and it's hard for them to imagine. It's a little, your first trip's a little overwhelming. There's a lot of places you can start. There's a ton of sites. I mean, they're just everywhere in the Alps. And, but I have a lot of people ask, hey, I'd really like to go do something like you're doing every year, like the Gumball. But if they, for people that don't have any background in the Alps, what would be your kind of top 3? Here's the things you need to know before going to do this.
I mean, if they just want to pitch up on their own and just go for it, well, I would say, the main thing that catches people out is the valley winds and storms. So, be super wary of storms brewing up. They can develop very quickly. I mean, you can't learn by memory every single valley wind in the Alps. It's impossible, but try and have an idea of some routes and have an idea of what the valley winds typically do in those along those routes. Speak to pilots if people want to approach me. That's fine. I can help. But the Alps is a vast place. I've only traveled on a few sort of main routes, really. So there's people with way more experience than me, obviously. But yeah, I would not be afraid to ask advice.
There's so many places to fly in the Alps, and I think you can almost throw a dart at an area and go and rock up and, like you said, talk to the locals and have a blast wherever you end up. And it's more just weather, isn't it? But if it's bad, all you got to do is wait. it'll get good again, or go somewhere
or
else.
just, hop on a train or go somewhere
Yeah.
else. That's that is the transportation links in the Alps are fantastic.
Yeah. Back to the people who join and how they join and that kind of thing. What would you, if you ever looked at, someone and you don't know them and they'd love to join your trip and you look at their contest flights, is there kind of a bar that they have to meet? What would you like to see that shows you, hey, you're probably ready for a journey like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they've done some of the sort of competitions, like the used to be called the Gin Wide Open, I think it's something else now, or the Shabra Open, any of those sort of level, and they've done 50k flights or 70k flights, that sort of thing. In a competition environment, it's a little bit different because you don't really have to think for yourself. You're just basically following other people. If you've certainly done those sort of distance flights on your own or just with a smaller group of mates, then yeah, I would look to see whether it's just in like the foothills of the Alps, which would be a bit different to flying around Mont Blanc Massif, for example, or some of the bigger mountains. I mean, essentially, the bigger the mountains are, the stronger the valley wind. So, I want to see, relevant experience really. But I mean, if someone really wants to come, we can't really stop them. They can rock up, in which case we'll say, well, look, just take it really steady, watch out here. We'll just give them as much advice as possible. But at the end of the day, it is everyone for themselves.
You said that you kind of break people down and you have almost a team leader and, a group of 4 or so pilots in a group. How do you decide those? Is that by experience?
These are just safety groups. So they're not, you wouldn't necessarily be flying together. It's just, they're just, we can be split up over 200 kilometers, but we'll still all check in with each other within that group. It's just because, I mean, ideally you just have, one group with 20 people in, but that gets quite difficult to manage and check up. So if you've got smaller groups, it's just easier for one person to be able to keep track of
I see.
Everyone else. So that's, but I mean, people naturally sort of find other people who fly at their same level. So these little pods would form naturally.
You mentioned that you've been hurt and some other people have managed to, injure themselves. What's been has there been a common theme there? Is that top landing? Is that getting caught in wind? There's just been random. What has there been?
Personally, for me, it's been windy landings. Someone else a few years ago now, he landed in a particularly windy place, and I can't remember the exact. I know roughly where it was, but I can't remember the exact scenario. But I think he had a collapse, sort of low level collapse, and came in quite hard. He's fine. Another guy, just was coming to landing, and he did bad landing. One guy ended up in some trees. So a mixture. For me personally, it was the first year. I was just, it was stupid. I was crossing over. I was heading along the Valais or Wallace near Fiche, and I was trying to cross over onto the south side, and I'd done exactly that move 2 years previously, and I thought, it's going to work exactly the same, and I failed to spot the signs of the northerly coming over the Grimsel Pass. So it was pretty windy on the south side. I arrived a bit lower than where I'd arrived at 2 years ago, and all of a sudden I was in horrendous sink and really rotary air. I just had no choice but to dive down the valley, which is the valley that leads up to the Newfoundland Pass. And the wind was switching, and when I landed, I landed downwind pretty fast. Once I packed up and walking down the hill, the wind was blowing from the other direction. And it would have been fine. It was bizarre. But anyway, nasty cut on my leg, but I was sort of walking wounded and made my way, walked down to the village at the bottom, hopped on a train, and got myself checked out at a hospital.
The Grimsel snake struck.
The Grimsel snake struck.
She's a snarky little one.
So I'm very, very wary of that now. And what was so stupid is as I was crossing the valley there, I had 10 minutes. I could have fired up web browser, looked at winds.mobi and seen exactly what was going on there. And in fact, you could see the cloud sort of spilling over. But I was overconfident. I thought,
done it before.
I made this move really successfully 2 years before, and it's going to work exactly the same.
Yeah.
So that was a good lesson for me. So it just goes to show, every day is still a school day in some respects.
You mentioned winds.mobi, which I use as well. I use Wind Alert, which just kind of captures them all in the same kind of thing. But what tech are you using for forecasting, for stuff in the air, radar? What are you using to both plan but also on the fly?
Yeah, so weather apps on the morning or the day before, we're looking at windy, looking at Meteo Parapont, looking at soaring Meteo, whichever one's giving the best forecast. Quite liking soaring Meteo. They've got some new models, and it's quite a nice, easy to use interface, which gives you a lot of information in one go. Meteo Parapont as well has a really nice, easy to use interface. I find it overestimates the wind a bit. Don't know why that would be, but you're always a bit wary of thinking it always, overestimates, because one day you'll get caught out like that. Meteo Blue as well has got some good graphics and animations. But so it's a sort of mixture. It's it's no one hard and fast app that I would sort of use all the time. Whilst we're flying and checking, I mean, the main thing is wanting to check out winds. So in Switzerland, the Meteo Swiss app is really good. It's fantastic. Got wind animations or wind, spot readings from lots of different places in valleys and mountaintops. Winds.mobi is the other one I use.
Are you looking at live cams much?
Not when flying, but I have looked at them in the past. When was it? It would have been probably 3 years ago. I was stuck on Mont Noble, which is on the south side of the Sion Valley, just sort of above Sion, I think, more or less. And I thought I'd glide over to the other side, onto the north side, to get the thermals. But the cloud I was ended up, clagged in cloud, but I was checking the webcams in the valley. And I could see that this cloud was just purely on the hilltops. The valley was completely clear, so I made the decision, right, I got to lob off and fly straight out and get in the clear air. And then, it worked perfectly.
Yeah. Went down through the cloud and bang, I could see everything.
Yeah. Glorious sunshine.
That's
exactly.
Exciting.
So, I mean, I could see there's nothing in front of me, no cables. It was just taking off in clear air. So I knew it was safe to do that.
I think I asked you this on the last one, but any particular flight of all these gumballs just really stand out? You make these great kind of summary videos of your trips that people love. I love. They're amazing. They're really well done. But anything just really stand out? Something you'd tell your little ones one day. This one flight.
I've had a few, but there's one day I did just over 200k from San Andre. That ended up at just at the landing field at Mont Lambert. So that was a really cool flight. I landed 6-7 o'clock, something like that. There were these French youths, shall we say, having a barbecue and a few beers, and I landed. They offered me some food, and that was terrific. Another really good flight was from Verbier all the way to Bellinzona. That was a stunning flight.
I did that in the Alps going the other way in 2015. That exact one. Yeah, cool.
I think that at the time that was my longest flight in the Alps. Yeah. What else? I mean, every time you fly over the Grimsel Pass and the Furka Pass, that's always just spectacular there.
Spectacular and a little bit butt puckering. You're
always
going, is it going to strike? Is it going to strike? But when it's good there, it can't be. It's incredible flying over that glacier and you're on the moon.
Yeah, it's spectacular. This year, I flew over it twice actually on 2 different trips, but the second trip there were just 4 of us in the group, so it was like a Gumball Part 2, a smaller. We felt this year we felt a little bit cheated by the weather. We actually had 8 good days, although on 2 of those days we didn't really make any forward progress. But and then the weather changed. So when I saw a little weather window in early August, I put the word out, said, anyone fancy joining me? And yeah, 4 of us. We had a great flight over the Grimsel Pass and Furka Pass and therming with an eagle just by that glacier. But another really memorable flight was in 2023. The Gumball was over prematurely. This was the Gumball where we didn't have the best of weather, but I ended up landing on the south side of Mont Blanc, and the wind had picked up quite a lot, and I got dragged into some boulders when I landed. Yeah, ended up gashing the same leg, ended up walking off down to Courmayeur, and then got a bus to Aosta to the hospital, where they looked after me fantastically. But yeah, then I came home 3 weeks, had my daughter's wedding, and then a couple of weeks later I was out to the Alps again. I thought I spotted again a nice little weather window from Saint Andre, and I had an amazing flight from Saint Andre up through the middle of the Écrins, and landed near Courchevel sort of area around there, the 3 valleys. And that was just epic, flying through that landscape. Incredible.
So pretty. The Écrins are incredible. When you hurt your leg, was that the Aosta? Were you at the west end of the Aosta?
Yeah, up until then it had been fantastic, beautiful, and the plan. I was with 2 other guys to start with, and the plan was to fly up towards Passy, but there were some big clouds there, and I thought, the clouds to the east look. We're starting from Montbizan, which is above the town of Beaufort, and so I sort of did my own thing, headed east, really, around the south side of Mont Blanc, an area I didn't know at all. And it was a beautiful flight. It was going fantastically and I was trying to get up to Verbier around the south, but really cloud base wasn't high enough. And I thought I'd be sheltered by Mont Blanc, by the massif itself, from the northwesterly sort of wind. But instead, the wind seemed to whistle around and accelerate through that valley. So I decided to land. Yeah, Courmayeur was the nearest town, but that was it was about a 7 or 8 mile walk down there.
Oh, okay. So you were trying to get up and over from the south side. I guess would that be like the Saint Bernard Pass into? There's that one town, Orsières, and then up to Verbier. I guess that's just to the east of the Massif, right? You're just.
That's what I was planning to do.
Okay, cool.
And I should have. Maybe you could say it's a lack of preparation, but there was some airspace shown as a danger area. I think a firing range or something on Fly Sky High, just sort of where I was. So I didn't want to go through it. I was sticking to the west of it. And it turns out that I don't think that danger area is active most of the time. And in fact, it's right by Col de Saint Bernard. I think it's just to the west of it, I think. And I think people fly through it all the time. I didn't know this, so I was avoiding it. But yeah, I had the height to sort of dive through that, and I think that would have been a very sensible decision.
Typically, when you start in Saint Andre, is your line typically up to Saint Vincent? So you're flying the Dormeuse?
Yeah.
That's kind of a cool first day. I mean, if you had a lot of people at the Gumball just show up and do that and go, dude.
Yeah, it blows their mind.
But that's a pretty mind-blowing flight. We've had a few people.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone makes it. Even sort of regulars sometimes struggle. Yeah. We had some people not get past the Cheval Blanc, really, that sort of area, or land in the boonies just north of the Cheval Blanc.
It gets pretty boony pretty quick.
But it's amazing, France. Those guys, some of them hitch and just did a bit of leapfrogging. Others hiked up and relaunched, somewhere on the side of the Dormeuse. So yeah, there's plenty of options when you land. That's the thing about the Gumball. If you do land, bomb early, you can either sort of stick with it, just do your own thing, or you can just
leapfrog.
You can just put your thumb out, get a bus or whatever, and just catch up, and then regroup with some other people the next day. So yeah, it works well like that. Some people have been known to take a train pretty much all the way from like Dean all the way up to Chamonix, I think.
Right. Yeah, sure. Why not? Right.
It's whatever works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You're still seeing some beautiful country. Would you ever? I don't know. Would you ever leapfrog right from the beginning, and instead of starting in France, would you start? I don't know, Davos or something, and go to Slovenia, or go do the Pinzgau route?
Yeah, I think we should do that sometime. Just start somewhere else.
Mm.
It is tempting, to fly some new areas. I sort of touched upon doing this little trip in August, and that was a real eye opener for me. I started in Fiesch, and I bought my return air ticket. That so flew out to Geneva on the Thursday, booked a return flight from Venice on Tuesday. So we had 4 flying days, and so to get as far as possible towards Venice, and had some amazing flights. It covered some real new ground.
Mm.
For me, and especially the Dolomites, the last day was absolutely stunning. But yeah, it would be fun to start in Chamonix, see how far we can get east. But I mean, I think the appeal for some people is to start, who've got more time, is obviously to start as far south as possible, really, and then make their way all the way to Slovenia. Like I was saying, Rafael did that this year, slow time. See what people fancy doing, 2025.
Yeah, right. Curious. Well, before we started recording, you mentioned you're 60 now, and I'm 52 now. I definitely am finding myself thinking more about I'm less durable than I certainly was when I was training for the Alps, but just in general, the vision's not as good. A little bit harder to get out of bed in the morning, a little more stiff. Definitely I just start thinking I'm thinking about it more, that, I can't necessarily, the crash reel we had in 2021 in that race, I did a lot of crashing in that race. and when you're training real hard, you can kind of roll off a lot of that stuff. But I start thinking about that more.
Your inner wombat is leaving you.
Yeah, I got less wombat these days. Exactly. So, just wondering how that factors into, what you're doing and what your group is doing. How I don't know. Is it something you guys is it something you talk about? Is it something you think about?
I don't think it's anything we specifically think about, subconsciously, or maybe not even consciously. I think this year I was happy to take it a little easier, not pushing it. I don't know if I'm flying any different, or I'm not. As a group, I don't think we're doing any different. Just because we're all getting older. I was probably the oldest, but we had some youngsters there as well who had a great time too. So I don't know. It's you just got to fly within your own limits. And this year for me was great. Actually, it was a very sociable Gumball for me. Way more time spent with other people than in previous years. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Are you noticing your own personal flying goals? Have they shifted in the last couple of years, or actually have they shifted because of the Gumball? Are you finding less need to X contest out every flight and more just flying for the aesthetic, or
Yeah, I mean, I certainly am not chasing kilometers in X contest, and I don't even do the UK National League anymore. Who doesn't like doing nice long flights, obviously. Sure. This year when I got to Chamonix, flying from La Clusaz, it wasn't a huge long flight, up the Aravi and then across to Passy. I got to Plain-Praz, went down the valley a bit, and I thought, do I push on my own? And by that stage, I knew the other guys. I had been part of a group with the night before. We all took off roughly together. They were landing in Passy and Chamonix, and so I thought, no, so this time I top landed at Plain-Praz, and there was 5 of us, I think, in the end, camping up at Plain-Praz, and it was such a great evening and a really great morning the next day. And in terms of my own flying goals and things, I love the aesthetic flights on that Fiesch to Feltre trip in August. The lines we took there were absolutely stunning. Back at home, I'm not chasing every kilometer for sure. I love doing 100k flights or even more 200k flights, but I'm certainly not out, every available opportunity. And because I'm not doing the league, I'm much more relaxed. If I miss a good day,
doesn't bother you as much.
There'll be another.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Cool. You were saying before we started as well that you're not doing a ton of travel in the winter. You're not doing big long haul flights. I assume you're not going down to Colombia or Brazil or that kind of thing. How do you bide your time with the winter blues. I mean, getting ready for the next
With the
season
winter blues, yeah. Rewatching my old videos or
or making new ones.
editing videos from the summer. Yeah, just do more local stuff on a bit more cycling, a bit of paddleboarding on the river and canal. We just got a new puppy, so we'll be doing he's too young for long walks at the moment, but
Training.
yeah, just my wife might even get me doing a bit of DIY. But better edit that bit out in case she ever listens.
Some honey-do lists coming your way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the world's best procrastinator when it comes to DIY.
But you were saying you were already thinking about dates for next year, so you guys most likely be in July.
Yeah, when I first was thinking about doing Vol Biv trips, I did a bit of analysis, looking at number of flights in different areas of the Alps, number of flights over 100 kilometers, or the number of days in which there were flights of over 100 kilometers. And, July seemed to be the most reliable. You're not getting the biggest flights, but you're getting the most days with reliable weather. But I think, with what the weather's doing, I think, and especially last year, it's less predictable.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, I don't have too much more for you, but I think everybody'd love to know what you're flying. What are you using? What are you using for gear on these trips?
So I've got a Omega ULS. It's X-Alps 5, I suppose it would have been called, which I absolutely love. Yeah, two-liner, D2-liner. Recently got so I haven't got a super light harness. I've got the Lightness 4 now. Yeah, fits all the gear in. It's very comfortable, so I like that a lot. That's my main. Yeah, that's the flying gear.
I'd say I know you're a Fly Sky High user, so you just extra battery and a phone and.
Oh yeah. My flight deck's got an extra battery, and so I carry two 10,000 milliamp batteries. I don't know why we say 10,000 milliamps. Why don't we just say 10 amp batteries? InReach, InReach Mini, Tracer 2 Flam is my variant most of the time in the Alps. Don't have to worry about charging it. Yeah, solar panel as well. Anchor strapped onto the front of my pod. Yeah.
And then, are you carrying full sleeping bag, stove, pad, tent, and all that kind of stuff too?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Personally, I use a quilt, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Again, I don't spend. I try and spend as little as possible on this sort of stuff. So it's all fairly budget stuff, except the mattress is the Thermarest Neo Air, which I think is it's the first model, so it's the noisy, rustly model, but it's very comfortable.
Nice and comfy. Yeah, I have the same one.
And the tent and the quilt are from AliExpress, and they're fantastic. Great. Yeah, really good.
That's all you need.
I mean, you can spend hundreds of pounds on sort of lightweight gear, but I don't intend to walk miles and miles and miles with the kit. So as long as it all fits in, and the whole lot comes to about 22 kilograms, something like that, and a bit more, add a bit for water. Food is
that's heavy.
Quite a lot of the weight. The more days you cater for, that significantly, adds up significantly. But it gets lighter as you go through it.
Yeah, sure. Tim, thanks very much, man. As always, it's a pleasure. It's good to see you. I really enjoyed getting your texts a couple nights ago, and when I was flying the sailplane wave, that was really neat. Thanks for reaching out. That was fun.
I enjoyed following that. It was definitely a cool thing to follow along. Yeah.
Yeah, flying at 256 knots was new.
Yeah. Well, I was following in a website called puretrack.io, which I recommend everyone check out. It's a fantastic sort of aggregator of all your different trackers.
Okay.
And I had it set to kilometers an hour. So when I was when it reached 440 kilometers an hour, I thought, bloody hell!
Well, I didn't tell you. So
that's insane.
I was on the stick when you sent the text. You said, "Hey, you got to 397. I was so hoping you'd get to 400." And so right then, I asked Gordon. I said, "Hey, man, we got some people watching. They want us to get it to 400." He goes, "Oh man, that'll be easy." He just pointed the nose down a little bit, and then right then the wave started getting really strong then, and so we were going 250. We were over 250 for a while, but we hit 256. and we were screaming up. I mean, we were going up and going that fast. It was just, this is ridiculous.
But yeah, so you're basically your nose down to get the speed.
Yeah. And we just stayed there.
But you're still going up.
Stayed pinned. I mean, I could tell he had, because I had my hand on the stick. At that point, he wanted the stick because we were going way too fast. If we hit any turbulence or something. But I mean, I could tell he had the thing pretty pinned down, and still just the vario just. Just,
you can hear it on some of your video.
really cool.
Great, and then landed in time for breakfast at the
exactly.
Airfield, no
yeah, and I mean, by the time we'd packed away the plane, it was dumping rain. I mean, we knew that this was coming. It came a little bit about an hour earlier than we were planning. So I mean, he knew way in advance it wasn't going to be kind of any record day, but yeah, I think he stretched it out really as far as we could, and it was.
How far south of takeoff did you end up going? I wasn't quite sure.
In distance, we got down to Whitney, Mount Whitney, which is, we call it the Whitney Portal. It was right beneath us. And we did a little jog down there. So we got all the way down there, came back, I don't know, I'm guessing 20 miles, 25 miles, and then went back down again because we could see on SkySight that it was going to light up. You know, we could see that the wave was going to get even stronger and better. And so he wanted to kind of pause a little bit down there before coming back, making sure we could. And I mean, when we turned around to go north, you could just see our altitude over goal. It was at 0 and it just went 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 11,000. I mean, you could see we weren't going to have to make a single move, which we didn't. And we actually flew past it. We flew past goal and went north a little bit further. And then, you could just see it was time that we had to get on the ground. And I was impressed with how much wind they can land in. Luckily, it was coming in pretty straight on the airfield, because if it would have been sideways, I'm sure he could have done it, but it would have been pretty exciting because it was 35 knots on the ground. It was cooking. It's just
what an adventure.
Such a different thing. It was.
Yeah, it's like worlds apart from what we do.
Worlds apart. Yeah, it's aviation, and then you kind of change. You stop right there. But I would say, I think he was just impressed with the knowledge. You know, we know what's going on. We just don't fly in those conditions. But it was really neat being above the wave. The night when we were on the night vision goggles, when we were 20,000, 22,000, and it was dead black, you could really see the harmonics of the wave and all these things that I've only ever seen from the ground. But you could, we were above it.
So there were wave bars. You could see the clouds.
Exactly. And and it was neat because on the night vision goggles, you could see the lights underneath where there wasn't cloud, and you could just see these rolls of, in the domes, and the domes would stretch north and south, be another, and then no cloud and another row, and you could just kind of see how it all works. And you could see how he was he would say, okay, well, we're going to go through some period here, we're going to get washed, and then right about now, and then we're going to hit it again, and then 10 seconds later the variants start ripping again, and you could just kind of see how you maneuver around in that kind of thing.
You never got any of the sort of the downdraft from the
bars. Yeah, we got really washed heading south, because heading south was quite a bit harder. We had quite a bit of wind on the nose, and so that's where I was telling you we were actually going backwards at one point, but we went quite deep into the terrain and hoping to kind of move over to another kind of segment of wave and to our west, and didn't get it. And we got down pretty low. I think we were down, I mean, it's not low by our standards, but we were kind of more in the terrain. It was kind of 14,000, which at that level in the Sierras, you're not that far above the peaks. And then it was rowdy. It was definitely, but you could see it. And at that point, he was really looking more for rotor cloud below us. So the wave stuff was above us, and we were just starting to get lenticulars at that point. There wasn't much moisture early on. It was much more blue. And as the day got more and more, as this system pushed in, we got a lot more moisture, and you could really see everything very well. But what saved us really was, just off to our right, there was these little bits of cloud, and you can see them they didn't look like normal clouds. They were kind of rolly. And he said, oh, okay, there it is. he just banged over to it, and it was very rough, but then we started going up again. And it's when you're in the rotor, it's terrible, but as soon as you get in the wave, it's just, you could take a nap. It's just smooth like butter. You know, there's no jumping around or jerking around. It's just super smooth. It's like being in a commercial jetliner when it's smooth.
I've never flown in wave myself, but I know there's up in the Peak District, which is sort of near Sheffield, near the city of Sheffield, in sort of northern England. There's you do get in winter, you get wave there off sort of above a site called Lord's Seat, I think it's called, or around that sort of area. And yeah, people have had amazing smooth climbs up to 3,500, 4,000 feet in winter. It just looks spectacular. I've never been in the right place at the right time.
I don't know what I anticipated, but everything that I anticipated was different than it actually was. The night vision goggles, especially, I really can't believe what you can see with those things. It's just incredible. You see everything. I mean, not the same way, of course, but, for example, we could see the sun coming up an hour and a half before we could see the sun coming up. You know what I mean?
It's like if you take a picture of the aurora with your phone, it just sees so much more, I guess.
Yeah. And you could, it's looking east about 4 o'clock in the morning. It's winter here. I mean, the sun doesn't come up until 7:30, 8 o'clock. And so, with the time change. And so, but at 4 o'clock, 4:30, you could see it starting to get light in the east, and you'd go, oh, there's the sun coming up, and you take off your night vision goggles, and it was dead black. There was nothing coming up, but in the night vision goggles there was. And, it was really, really quite cool. I mean, taking off from a totally black runway, and you can see it all. It was wild.
It's very exciting. But I mean, it's not the same as flying cross country across the mountains and battling with rowdy thermals and feeling just on a paraglider, you just immerse in your environment, aren't you?
You really are. Yeah. I was impressed that you have more of a feeling than I thought we would. And I think that's because of the wave and everything else. I mean, I think the standard glider flying would be less immersive than this was, for sure. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that's why he's so keen on paragliding. He loves what we do because it's aviation, but it's very different. You're not feeling it in the same way, but it was cool. It's neat going 300 miles an hour.
Mad, yeah.
Well, cool, bud. Well, hey, thank you very much. As always, appreciate your time. Thanks for saying hello.
Lovely to chat to you again,
flying a sailplane. And good luck with the future gumballs. I'd like to join you on one of these. They look like just a hoot.
That'd be terrific. Yeah, do that.
Cool, man. Talk to you soon. Cheers.
Great. Thanks, Gavin. It was lovely talking to you.
If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way out to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription. And it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. you can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do, and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.